It's now 6 o'clock and I would like to start this meeting. I'm Councillor Lydiard and I will be the chair of this meeting in Councillor Fletcher's absence. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded for publication on the Council's website. Agenda item 1, apologies for absence. Apologies received from Councillors Fletcher, Polston and Jay Maney, along with co-optee Steve Taylor. Carly, have there been any further apologies?
No further apologies.
Was Councillor Howden supposed to be here?
Oh, yes, he was subbing, but yes, he sends his apologies as well.
Thank you. Agenda item 2, minutes. I move that the minutes of the Planning Committee meeting held on the 21st of November 2024 be approved as a correct record. Are there any comments on the accuracy of the minutes? No? Okay, they're approved. Thank you. Agenda item 3 on the agenda, items of urgent business. I have not agreed to any urgent business. So agenda item 4, declarations of interest. Does anyone have any declarations of interest to make? Councillor Kelly?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'll remove myself from item 10, which is Local Development Order London Gateway, as I'm an employer of Dubai Ports World. Okay, thank you.
Okay, you can excuse yourself when you like. Yeah.
Yeah, when we get to that, I'll leave.
Thanks, Councillor Kelly. Item 5 on the agenda, declarations of receipts. Does anyone have any declarations of receipts, of correspondence, and or any meetings, discussions held relevant to determination of any planning application or enforcement action to be resolved at this meeting? No? No, nothing at all. Thank you. Agenda item 6 on the agenda, planning appeals, pages 13 to 24. Can I ask Nadia Houghton to present, please?
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. The appeals summary is before you tonight. I'm happy to take any questions if there are any.
Are there any questions on the appeals? No? Okay. Recommendations are to note the report. Thank you. Agenda item 7, 2102-109 FUL, land at 52 Broadway and adjacent Manor Road, Grays, Essex, pages 25 to 56. And can I ask Nadia Houghton to present the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Carly, we're all good, aren't we? Yeah, excellent. So this application seeks full planning permission for the redevelopment of the site for residential purposes. The proposal would entail 24 flats that are 1 and 2 bedroom and 21 houses with 3 bedrooms. As you can see, the site is between Dock Road and Broadway to the north and Manor Road to the south. The northern part of the site has been in commercial uses for long periods, and part of the southern area was a scrap metal yard which relocated to Stamford in 2021. Some images of the site for you. So this is looking south from the Broadway and looking west along Broadway with the site on the left, and the western side of the site on Manor Road, and a view looking north from Manor Road, and some images looking west into the site from Cherry Tree Close, and views within the site. I've reoriented the site plan here so you can better see the entirety of the site. So the northern end of the site is on the far right-hand side of the image here, and the southern end in Manor Road on the left. So the northernmost block of flats would provide live street frontage onto Dock Road here at the end, at the northern end, and parking would be located between the 2 blocks of flats and the houses. 9 of the dwellings along 9 of the dwellings on the southern end of the site with Manor Road would have direct frontage onto Manor Road, continuing the existing street pattern, and the final 7 dwellings would be located around a core spine road within the site. Some general elevations, these are the flat block elevations here. And of consideration really with this application is that the site is in a highly sustainable location within Grays, within walking distance of local schools and the parade of shops on Broadway. It's the type of location where residential uses should really be encouraged. Here's some elevations of the houses proposed, 3-bedroom houses. And the previous commercial uses on site didn't sit comfortably with the nearby residential uses, particularly the scrapyard to the south, which was often the cause of noise and disturbance and had inappropriate vehicle movements for a residential area. This isn't considered to be, the loss of this employment land isn't considered to be particularly significant or a cause for concern regarding the loss of its commercial use. Overall, the site's in a highly sustainable location and the principle is acceptable. It would result in the removal of incompatible commercial uses in a largely residential area. The layout of the site is suitable and accommodates a mix of houses and flats, all of which are technically compliant, and matters of detail in terms of layout, design and highways are all acceptable, and it's recommended to members for approval, subject to conditions and a Section 106 agreement to secure a viability review mechanism. There is one other piece of housekeeping I wanted to point out. On page 54, there is a duplication of a condition. Condition 30 is a refuse and recycling condition. That's duplicated because it already exists under condition 9. So I've struck condition 30 from the agenda with members' agreement. But I'm happy to take any questions, should members have any.
Thank you, Nadia. Are there any questions? Can we ask the speaker to come up, please, Carly? Thank you.
To turn it on.
Good evening. You have 3 minutes to present your report.
Good evening. Thank you, Chairman and Councillors. My name is David Maxwell. I work for WSP as planning consultant and agent to the applicant. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today to present our proposal and outline why we believe the application should be approved. We're delighted that the Council's planning officers recognise the benefits of this development, which brings the benefits this development brings to the local area, and are recommending approval. The proposed development will deliver 45 dwellings comprising 24 flats over 2 purpose-built blocks and 21 single-family dwelling houses, alongside parking spaces that exceed a policy-compliant level, with 80 spaces provided across the development. All new dwellings will provide an excellent standard of accommodation for future residents. The existing site was previously used as a scrapyard with high fencing around it, and it has a dilapidated appearance. The site abuts residential properties on 3 sides and would have a detrimental impact on neighbouring residential amenity if the use as a scrapyard or similar were to continue. The Council has no site-specific planning policies relating to the site and have concluded that other employment uses on the site would not be suitable given its limited access for larger vehicles and its proximity to residential properties. The development will take a poorly located, dilapidated, redundant employment site and regenerate that to provide the area with much needed new housing while visually enhancing the character and appearance of the area, with full landscaping proposed as part of these works. The development will not have any adverse impact on neighbouring residential properties. The site is well located for future residents to access local amenities. There are a range of shops and services nearby, including schools and doctors' surgeries. The site is served by a number of bus routes and is only 1 mile from Grays railway station. A financial contribution for both healthcare and education will be secured by the Section 106. Thurrock Council currently acknowledge that they have less than 1 year supply of housing. This scheme will deliver 45 new homes on a brownfield site within the built confines of Grays. The units make best use of a brownfield site in line with the NPPF. The proposed use will visually enhance the area and will have a positive impact on existing neighbouring residential amenity. As such, we respectfully request that the committee approve the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maxwell. Would you like to go back to your seat? Sorry, before you go, can we ask our members if they've got any questions of the... No? Thanks very much. There's a statement of support been received from Mrs. Anne Wilson that can be found on page 2 of the Speaker's booklet. Okay, thanks. All right. Members, do you have any questions to ask of the planning officer? Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Chair. My first question was, could you show us a view of the site, like the whole plan, and just give me a rough idea on access? Because I understand there's some different accesses, so if you could just explain, what vehicles will be accessing from what areas for what homes. Thank you.
Through you, Chair, yes, I can. So this, I'll show you from the aerial and then I'll show you the site plan if that's most helpful. So there are 3 key access points in the proposal. The first is to the north from Dock Road, adjacent to the existing accessway that runs north-south at the moment, leading to 5 parking spaces nearer the flats. And there are 2 other accesses to the southern end. One is the main access of Manor Road, which would lead into the spine of as a spine road into the site, and there's one to the west of that on Manor Road that would split the terrace of houses. And if I go down to the site plan, you will see that layout more clearly. So as we look at it from the right-hand side, we've got the existing access road there. That would lead to 3 parking spaces, which are numbered 1, 2, 3, immediately to the rear of the first block of flats. And then if you carry on down the access road to the turning head, you've got 2 other spaces there, just at the very end of the turning head there, that would come off of Dock Road. And then the southern end, you've got the main access road running into the site, serving the development, and then a smaller access that would provide access to the parking court between the terrace there.
Excellent, thank you. And just to confirm, so there's no access from Cherry Tree Close?
Through you, Chair, there is no access through Cherry Tree Close, and officers are aware of the neighbour concerns regarding some unauthorised access. And if I could draw members' attention to condition 21 on page 51, because I'm conscious that some residents were keen to see a wall reinstated along the southwestern edge of the site as it abuts Cherry Tree Close. And on condition 21, regarding details of boundary treatment, there is an additional sentence at the end of that condition where we're asking to agree those details in terms of boundary treatment and walls and so on, which specifically states these details shall include details of a wall on the southeastern boundary of the site with Cherry Tree Close, which officers hope gives residents in the close the comfort they were looking for in that regard.
Okay, thank you. And then, so just to confirm, obviously, from the statement of support from Ms Wilson, who's not here this evening, so effectively, that is, you'll be looking to put that wall back in place, hopefully.
Through you, Chair, yes, we will.
Anyone else? Councillor Sisterton.
Yeah, it was just about one of the conditions was to do with the Section 106 and securing a viability review mechanism. There's sort of two things there. There's one, at the moment, there's no affordable housing included. So, you know, I suppose you can't guarantee that it will be following if it's still to be reviewed. And also the impact on local schools and GPs and things. Thank you.
Through you, Chair, it's absolutely valid question because as members will be aware, we would expect affordable housing of 35% on schemes of this size. The proposal has been subject to 2 independent viability assessments in 2021 and late 2022. In both cases, the scheme was found to be unviable in terms of providing any affordable housing contributions or education contributions at all. And this is principally because of the condition of the site. It wouldn't be a huge surprise to members. The site is quite dirty with its commercial history and scrapyard use. So there isn't any means at the moment for the scheme to viably provide any contribution towards affordable housing or education. However, the most recent viability appraisal that was carried out on assessments indicated that the most appropriate route would be to have a review mechanism agreed by both parties within a legal agreement where the actual real costs of the bill could be then assessed, and if there is scope to provide any affordable housing or education contributions, that would then be secured. Those discussions are at an early stage, but the developer and the council are in agreement that viability review mechanism should be agreed and secured to ensure that the borough doesn't miss out on any contributions where they are feasible from the site.
Will it be an independent review? Because obviously the developers will be free to come in and say it costs this however much, you know.
Through you, Chair, absolutely it has to be independent. We couldn't have applicants marking their own homework, and that's not what we would do. And we would ensure consistency in that regard. And I think the way we're envisaging it is that, and this is my view, as I say, the actual draft legal agreement hasn't yet been drawn up between the applicant and the council, but I would imagine on a scheme of this size and scale, we'd be looking at something along the lines of a viability review mechanism being triggered at, say, year 3 to 4, when the actual real build costs can be assessed and a real deep review of the viability could be carried out to see what is achievable, if anything. But given the 2 most recent viability assessments carried out independently showed that there was little scope for that, it may not be possible, but at least we can ensure we endeavour to seek what we can.
Do any other members have any questions? Councillor Heath?
I know the area very well, and I think it is a really good application. My concern is the GPs as well as the schools, and will the GPs be able to cope with the number of residents that's going to move in?
Thank you, Chair, and through you again. I actually wanted to point out, as David Maxwell indicated, is that the applicant is willing to provide the required healthcare financial contributions that was identified by the local NHS, Mid and South Essex, in their formulas. Now, I must point out that isn't listed in the heads of terms in the recommendation under point 16. I've made a note to include that and was going to bring that up through you, Chair, with members' agreement to include the healthcare financial contribution as a head of term, given David Maxwell had also highlighted it. I think it was actually just missed off the list as a typo. So I will include that if everyone agrees.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly?
Thank you. And just to confirm, so the road on Manor Road obviously is quite untidy. I'm assuming that road is going to be to a decent standard leading up to the development, and then I assume that's it, because obviously there's quite a lot more road there. I didn't know if there was going to go extra, so that was the first point. And second of all, it might not be relevant, but we approved a housing development on Manor Road about 3, 4, 5 years ago, and I understand there was issues with access. I think it came from the former owner of the scrapyard. So one would assume that by approving this, getting the road made up, it might give flexibility for more development in the future. Although we need to be careful, that's not entirely relevant to what we're looking at. Thank you.
Through you, Chair, I can answer what I'm aware of in this regard, but Julian may pick up on more specific detail. So, absolutely, I can agree the condition of the road surfacing on certainly sections of that bit of Manor Road aren't great. As you can see on the plan in front of you, the applicant has identified in purple visitor spaces in that wider area. That falls outside of the red line of the site. With respect to parking, the proposal is policy compliant. It would provide 80 spaces where 78 would be required for the scheme. So, the site itself, it wipes its own face, so to speak, regardless of any parking provision elsewhere. My understanding is that it's likely that the developer will upgrade the surfacing outside of the site on Manor Road. That does fall outside the red line, but I know that there have been discussions between the developer and the Highway Authority in that regard, and Julian may have more that he could say on that.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, we've put in highway conditions in terms of access and the like. So we were expecting, as Nadia's indicated from discussions that we had on site, that area will be improved, and then that it's whether it will be, as you know, it's a private at the moment. There were some issues regarding gating at the time because the salvage people gated it off illegally and obviously had to remove the gate because it has got public highway rights on it. So it is a public highway. It has public highway rights on it. So in terms of access, if that is made up to adoptable standards, then yeah, potential for extension for further adoption, road adopted beyond that, there is a possibility, yeah.
Thank you. And then one last one. Obviously, it's near a school. I don't know what it's like in the morning. I assume that parents would currently park on the unadopted highway. A little bit of guesswork. Obviously, if it's made up properly, I wouldn't know whether that then they're no longer able to do that. Now, it's obviously positives and negatives to that. Do you have any sort of idea on what might happen if this goes ahead with additional parking around the school?
Thank you, Chair. The idea of from the applicant, knowing what it's like there, yes, you're right. It is well parked up at school times. As you can see from the parking, that parking will be open for anybody to use, including school parents and whatever it is, and it will regularise some of the parking around there rather than it being a bit chaotic as it is at the moment. So hopefully it will, I mean, it's never going to solve the whole of the problem in terms of the requirement of the school in terms of parking, but at least it's going to improve it in that particular area. And the footway is directly behind that. So obviously you park your car, step off straight onto the footway and walk into the school rather than, what happens at the moment.
If there are no further questions, oh, sorry, Councillor.
Is there any provision for electric charging points at all on the...
Through you, Chair, there is a condition. I'm just trying to find it. Bear with. Thank you. Condition 18 on page 50 requires electric vehicle charging points to be provided.
If there are no further questions, shall we go to debate? Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Chair. So half of this is in my ward. I think the other half filters into one of the Grays wards. I do think it's a nice infill development. There's not a huge amount of resident opposition. It might be because of the history. Normally you would expect a bit of opposition to a scheme like this, but I think because it was a former scrapyard, I think actually a few residents are looking forward to that not being there and it for being housing. So yeah, in general, I think it's a good scheme. It's good to see that hopefully we can get that wall reinstated in Cherry Tree Close. Outside that, it's Brownfield site infill. All in all, I think it's pretty reasonable. So I'll be voting in favour. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, know the area extremely well. It goes back for more years than I care to mention, actually. Yeah, the area's always, or that particular area has always been quite an eyesore, and it's been sort of crying out for some sort of favourable development for a long, long time. I mean, I will be supporting the application. You know, on reflection, I think it's perfect for the area. I do echo some of the concerns from other councillors regarding maybe the additional traffic that's going to generate, especially at peak time and local services. But you know, it's been a bit of an eyesore for many, many years, and I think, you know, the getting maybe sort of new families into the area will always hopefully benefit local businesses, etc., etc. So yeah, I'm more than in favour. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Arnold. Councillor Heath.
Yeah, I just echo what the others have said. I think, you know, the area, it does need something doing to it, and this does look a good prospect. I think as long as we can get the healthcare contribution put into it, yeah, I think it would be good. And I mean, with the schools, I know what you're saying with the traffic, but there's car parks and things that parents use, so I can't even see that being much of a problem.
Thank you, Councillor Heath. Anyone else? Okay, I'll continue. I've got a list of reasons why we should go ahead and recommend this for development, but I would only be repeating exactly what you guys have said already, so I'm going to go straight to the vote if that's okay. Well, the recommendation is that the Chief Planning Officer be authorised to grant permission for the development subject to those items set out in section 16 of this report, a completion of section 106 obligation agreement and the other conditions. Those people in favour, please put your hand up.
Yeah, I'll second that as well, Chair, if that helps.
Thanks, yeah.
Cheers.
That's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Oh, didn't have it. Yeah, can I ask Nadia Alton to present the report?
Thank you, Chair. This application relates to development of Orsett Cricket Pavilion. As many of you will be aware, the cricket club in Orsett is on School Lane here, and the proposal relates to the installation of a petanque terrain or a ball court, depending how you want to refer to it, at the club. This is an indication of the location of the petanque terrain on the left, and in comparison, as shown on an aerial image, it just sits immediately east of the cricket pavilion building. Here's a floor plan indicating the floor plan and the general dimensions of the terrain. As you can see, it's 9 metres by 24 metres in dimension. And some images of the site before the development was carried out, because it is retrospective. That is because of the funding requirements and timescales, and so the actual club went ahead and installed the petanque terrain. And indeed, that's one of the reasons why the application is before you this evening, not just because it's on council-owned land. Images generally of the cricket pavilion with the area of the green immediately adjacent to it. And these are some site images showing the petanque terrain in place. As you can see, the actual petanque court is clear of any cricket squares at all on the site, and it has absolutely no impact on the playing or in any cricket matches whatsoever at the site. You can see its proximity to the clubhouse and the School Lane highway there, and in the context of the actual pavilion building there. The proposal or the application is a positive addition to the ground, has absolutely no impact upon the operation of the cricket club at all, and it complies with all relevant policies within the adopted core strategy and is recommended to members for approval.
Thank you very much. Can we ask for Sue Little to come up and give her statement, please? This can be found on page 4 of the speaker's booklet. Oh, yeah. What this?
Excuse me, Chair. Before I begin speaking, the public gallery cannot hear a word that's happening in the meeting tonight because they must have not turned the speakers on. Did you hear?
No, I'm sorry, I was talking.
Sorry, Councillor Liddard. The people in the up in the 2 and 6s, I was going to say the public gallery, can't hear a thing tonight. There's no speakers on. So perhaps someone could solve that issue. Anyway, I'm here this evening to speak regarding the Patank Court, which really is only a rubber stamp, but I felt it important to come and speak about it because this must happen to many other councillors here when they could lose funding for things because of how we operate. And as you know, we had lost funding twice already before we finally put in the court. If you looked back on the history, and I'd been dealing with this for about 4.5 years, it just got ridiculous. And when we had the play area for the children, we had that moved from the back to the front of the park for obvious reasons, didn't have a problem with that. We put in the play equipment, not play equipment, the adult gymnasium, no problem. Moved a hedge so the cricket could go without planning permission, no problem. Suddenly we get a Patank court and it's caused goodness knows how many worries for the council for the fact that they didn't even know who owned the park. And actually they don't own the park, the charity owns the park. The council just operate it for the charity who own it. This Patank court, actually we have about 50 members. There's no hierarchy within the club, we're all the same. And it also fulfills many of our targets, i.e. that within the group it helps people who live on their own, people with disabilities, learning difficulties, helps social integration and exercise in the front, you know, in the fresh air, all things we want to have. There is no fees to actually play at the club. All we ask is if you come and have a cup of tea while you're up there, bring your own mugs and take it home and wash it up, save us doing it. But we take it in turns in taking Prosecco up there, cakes, etc., and it's turned into quite a social event. We use the clubhouse because, as you can imagine, we're all of a certain age and we all need to go to the loo. So that's why I put it where it was. The cricket club have no problem with us at all using their facilities, and in fact, several of their members have actually joined. We couldn't play in the winter with the snow, but now we've got the, what should I say, kitty litter down, we can play all the time other than it snowing. So what I'm looking at is for you just to rubber stamp this, but also to try and think about when councillors bring forward things that are so obvious and so easy to agree, rather than let them lose the funding, is that, you know, common sense approach is taken. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Sue. Would members be happy to go straight forward to the vote and recommend, yeah? Okay, the recommendation is that the Chief Planning Officer be authorised to grant permission for the development subject to those items set out in section 16 of this report, and that's the conditions. All those in favour, please put your hand up. Seconded. Councillor Byrne. Right, unanimous, yeah.
Thank you, councillors, and I did forget to say, if any of you'd like to come up there, if you haven't got your own balls, we can give you some balls and you can play to your heart's content. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, suspect.
There may be a problem for people hearing at the back there, so can we speak up? Thanks. Item 9 on the agenda, 2400965 FUL, Victoria Avenue, Grays, pages 69 to 88 on your agenda. Can I ask Nadia Houghton to present the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. This application seeks planning permission for the erection of a two-storey, two-bedroom dwelling on land to the rear of 22 Victoria Avenue in Grays. Hopefully, everyone in the public gallery can hear what I'm saying, even with the horrendous croaky voice right now. Apologies all. This application has been called in to Planning Committee by councillors to consider matters relating to character, impact and overlooking neighbour amenity issues. As you can see before you, the site lies to the rear of Victoria Avenue and actually would front Marlborough Close in Grays. Here's the site location plan showing in greater context the application site in relation to number 22 Victoria Avenue and the neighbouring properties in Marlborough Close. Some site images for you. So this is the existing dwelling at number 22 on the left in Victoria Avenue. And this is the application site. So as you look directly at the site, it's those grey gates and grey painted fencing on the right-hand side, which is the actual plot. The left-hand side there, the brown fencing there, is actually the rear of 20 Victoria Avenue, and planning permission was granted last year for a detached dwelling there, in addition to this current application that we're considering this evening. Both application sites at number 20 and 22 are in different ownership and have been, indeed were submitted by different applicants. As you can see, the plot on the right-hand side would be close by to number 54 Marlborough Close, which has a window in the flank. That window serves a bathroom and not a habitable room. And as you can see, number 51 Marlborough Close sits slightly further away and also has a window in the flank. That would appear to be a hallway or landing window. Some images generally of the street scene immediately forward and fronting the site. Looking at both neighbouring properties and looking generally at the character of properties in Marlborough Close there, in both directions. So the existing street scene shows effectively a gap in what would have been a rear access way to 20 and 22 Victoria Avenue. Side elevations there. And this is the proposed site plan showing a gable roof property running parallel, with ridgeline running parallel to Marlborough Close, filling the width of the site with a single parking space on the front. It would be a two-bedroom property. In all respects, the proposal would be policy compliant regarding its appearance, design, the amount of amenity space provided and so on. The dotted line outlined on the left-hand plan before you shows the extent of the footprint of the previously approved dwelling in the adjacent plot that's also a two-bedroom detached property. For members' benefit, I've included an elevation of that approved dwelling for the site to show its appearance and context. As you can see, it sits quite comfortably within the existing street scene in terms of its design, scale and appearance, and would also be a two-bedroom property. These are the proposed floor plans for the proposal at the rear of number 22. It has no openings or windows to either flank elevation, and as I say, would occupy much of the width of the site. and a larger block plan showing this in the context of the adjacent approved dwelling. And here's an elevation of the front of the property in the context of the street scene. It would reflect the height and scale of the property recently approved next door. And a rear elevation showing similar. And side elevations. So in summary, the principle of the development would be acceptable, and there are no land use objections to the proposal. Whilst the dwelling would be slightly narrower than others in the area, the overall design, layout and details of the proposal would be acceptable. The proposal would have no adverse impacts on character, neighbour amenity, visual amenity or appearance, parking or highway safety, or any landscape or ecology concerns. And it complies with all relevant core strategy policies and is recommended to members for approval on page 83. Very happy to take any questions, should anyone have any.
Thank you. Does anyone... Oh, we've got a speaker statement from Rosie Cotter. Yeah. Would you like to come down and... Oh, yeah.
Turn it on.
Thank you, Chair, and members for the opportunity to speak tonight. Can you all hear me? First of all, I'm not Rosie. Rosie was unable to come tonight, and I'm taking her place. I'm Rosie's boss, and we are the designers of the scheme. This application allows for the testing of the proposals for a new dwelling house located at the rear of 22 Victoria Avenue, Grays. The application site comprised of an existing semi-detached dwelling house which fronts Victoria Avenue, benefiting with a private amenity to the rear, which is substantially bigger than the neighbouring properties. The proposed new dwelling is shown to be located at the rear of the site fronting Marlborough Close, where there exist multiple dwellings of different types. The proposals shown as part of the application are similar to the proposals shown on the direct neighbouring site at 20 Victoria Avenue, Grays, which is a similar design and was supported and approved by the local planning authority. The applicant is a long-term resident of the borough and is happy and wishes to remain on the site he has lived in for many years. The applicant and our team have worked together on the proposals in detail in order to provide a bespoke living accommodation designed to meet the needs of an occupier in their latter years. It is the applicant's intent to live here as a final home, which has been specifically designed to meet the applicant's needs. The applicant owns a single vehicle, which, should this application be supported, will be parked on site. The on-site parking space will be served by the existing dropped curb, albeit widened if necessary. It will be inappropriate for vehicles not connected to the applicant's site to park by the dropped curb, as it will prevent access. However, if the applicant has a visitor, they can park across the existing dropped curb, as the applicant and host will not be expected to leave the site while there is a need for hosting a visitor, thereby providing a neutral impact on the local parking provision, which may allay the legitimate concerns of the neighbours regarding parking provision. Perceived issues such as loss of parking or amenity are perception, and should the loss of amenity and the parking matter be realised, the provision of a much-needed new dwelling house will be beneficial, far outweighing perceived parking harm in this instance. By virtue of the existing dropped curb, it will be inappropriate for vehicles not related to the site to park there, As such, with the new dwelling proposals including on the off-street parking matters, there is no change to the current parking arrangement existing.
Can you sum up? Please, your 3 minutes is up. Thank you.
Thank you. The proposals forming this application are similar in scale and type of the recently approved nearby applications, and as such, we respectfully request that members appreciate the improvement this matter will bring to the locality and support the proposals shown in this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do members have any questions? Councillor Byrne.
Infields. Everyone, I mail Nadia nearly every week when we have an infill on Branksome Avenue, and it's always, from the start to finish, builders annoy everybody because they're outside, they've got lorries out there. Is there any provision in any of these infills to make builders behave? Because it doesn't matter. TBC can go down there and visit one day, and the next day all the lorries are back. So infills are great when they're finished, but when during the build, they're just nothing but disruption for. So the question is, what can we do to make, if anything, make builders behave? Is there any provision for that?
Question for the case officer rather than the speaker.
Right. Nadia, would you like?
Through you, Chair, I appreciate the question, and it's probably better that I answer this, but and I hear what the councillor is referring to. Obviously, Marlborough Close doesn't have the same residential precinct status as Branksome Avenue, as the councillor is aware, and I know the sites he's referring to in particular, where there were difficulties by some unneighbourly practices of, or some inconsiderate builders at the time elsewhere. This particular site, there are constraints. It is in a close, and on page 85, there is condition 6, which relates to a construction environmental management plan, which in this case is quite detailed, if not overly detailed, for what would be a single dwelling to take on board those concerns.
Thank you. Councillor Sisterton.
I've got 2 questions, if that's all right. Just to ask the applicant, I couldn't quite understand. So the person who is going to live in that house, do they currently live in the house on Marlborough? Victoria. Oh, yeah, sorry, I don't know the roads.
Correct.
So then will they sell the one, will they move and then sell the existing one?
I'm not sure of their intent with the donor dwelling, if you like, but they will be moving from that one to the proposed new one at the end of the garden. Whether sale or rent for the other one, I'm not sure.
Any further questions? Councillor.
Would there be, through the chair, where we've got the next door, there's permission granted, isn't there? Would there be any mechanism whereby the building could be coordinated in any way?
Through you, Chair, no. In a nutshell, you have to. If this is approved, as well as the previous dwelling, you would have 2 separate extant planning permissions in the name of 2 different landowners, 2 different applicants, and either could be implemented, both or none. But there is no mechanism by which both could be carried out at the same time.
Any further questions? No? Can we go to debate? Would anybody like to debate? Councillor Arnold?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, not really had any questions at all, really. I mean, the only question I have got is why on earth has it been called in? I mean, I know it's councillor's prerogative, but flipping heck, I can't see why this wasn't done donkeys years ago. Obviously, the applicant is the owner of the other property, so it makes absolutely perfect sense, probably personally and everything, that he's going to move straight into this one. So I don't even know why it's here tonight, to be honest.
Thank you, Councillor Arnold. Anyone else want to say a word? No? Should we go to the vote? Who would like to propose the recommendation, which is that the Chief Planning Officer be authorised to grant permission for the development subject to those items set out in section 16 of the report a condition. You propose it? Do we have a seconder? Seconder, Councillor Arnold. Those in favour? Those against? And no abstentions. Thank you very much. We move now to agenda item 10, Local Development Order, London Gateway Logistics Park, pages 89 to 128. Can I ask Emma Barnett and Rachel Morell to present the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. So before you today, there's going to be two applications under consideration in relation to a new local development order for London Gateway Logistics Park. It's known as LDO2. The first application relates to consideration of the Habitats Regulations Assessment. And first, you need to make a decision on this application before then moving to determine whether to make LDO2. So first I'll run through some slides just in relation to the Habitats Regulation Assessment application, which we need to review first. So I think probably most of you know where the logistics park's sited, but before you here's a location plan. Hatched in red there, that's the logistics park site, and to the south is the London Gateway Port. To the west and northwest, we've got Stamford, La Hope and Corringham, and then not directly adjoining the site, but to the east is the Thames Enterprise Park proposed development. So just a little bit of background to the proposal. Local development orders provide permitted development rights for specified types of developments in defined locations. There's quite a bit of history in relation to the site here. So back in May 2007, the Secretary of State granted outline planning permission for development of the site for 938,601 square metres of commercial floor space. Due to the complexity of the permission and all the conditions associated with that, the decision was taken to then progress with a local development order. So back in November 2013, LDO1, as it's now known, was made. This local development order granted up to 8,229,700 square metres of commercial floor space, and that had a duration of 10 years, so it expired last year. Some of you were here back in February when LDO 1.5 was considered, which was an interim LDO. This was to be valid for 1 year or when LDO 2 is made, whichever is the earlier. And that allowed 85,000 square metres of commercial floor space, so up to 422,225 square metres. Now before you, we've got LDO2. Now the intention of LDO2 is to help realise the completion of the logistics park, and it's proposed to be valid for 10 years and to allow up to 733,776 square metres of commercial development, of which some 400,000 has already been completed or committed under the earlier local development orders. So, as I mentioned, first we need to look at the Habitats Regulations Assessment before actually determining whether to make LDO2. So under the Conservation and Habitats and Species Regulations, they must be applied to the making of a local development order. The HRA is required to identify any likely significant effects the proposed development may have on internationally significant designated sites of nature conservation importance. And Thurrock, as the competent authority, is required to determine if LDO2 will have an adverse effect on the integrity of any European protected species, protected sites, either alone or in combination with other plans or projects prior to making a decision on LDO2. So here, this is a plan here just showing those designated sites that we're looking at. So we've got the Thames Estuary Marshes Special Protection Area and Ramsar site, and the Benfleet and Southend Marshes SPA and Ramsar site. So as you can see, they're not actually located on the site, but they're within the 10-kilometre study area, which has been proposed. So just in terms of a summary of the HRA assessment, a report was prepared which was to provide information to the council to enable a conclusion to be made on this proposal. The report sets out that subject to mitigation being secured, LDO2 is very unlikely to contravene the conservation objectives of any of the relevant designated sites. We've also consulted Natural England and they've raised no objection to the proposal. So the recommendation that's before you, firstly, to note the content of the report to inform Habitats Regulation Assessment on the logistics park, dated August 2024, and the consultation responses received. And then to formally determine that on the basis of the information available, that the development proposed by LDO2 would not adversely affect the integrity of a European site or a European offshore marine site, either alone or in combination with other plans or projects. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rachel. Do members have any questions? No? I have a couple. Is it fair to say, sorry, Councillor Byrne?
The site I've got no problem with. The problems that we all have is the road that gets us there, the manorway, and we always have the argument of somebody owns 2 inches at the top and somebody's responsible for 2 inches at the bottom. Is there a provision in any of this to make sure that the lorries don't keep knocking out the surface of the manorway? Because it's constantly a problem getting there. Once it's there, it's a great site, great, well looked after, everything's great, but that bit of actually getting to the site is a constant pain.
Thank you. This is the proposal that we're looking at now, is for the Habitat Regulations Assessment. So those are questions we can certainly come to and answer if we move on to the next decision to determine whether to make LDO2.
Any further questions? Is it right that I remember the Development Corporation agreeing to this site in 2010, and basically we're just agreeing to fill out that space, really, aren't we? It's and it was a DCO. Was DCO's consent, or was it a consent order that agreed it? No, okay. But, you know, basically I'm looking at it and going through it and I'm thinking to myself, well, we're just agreeing another 10-year period for them to be able to fill in the space that they've got there at the present moment. And if we don't pass this through, there'll be a number of developments that will be very disappointed because they're hoping to do some work very, very soon to build out some more warehouses and stuff like that. Yeah, is that correct?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, that is correct. I mean, this is effectively the 4th time that members have been asked to consider development on this site. As Rachel pointed out, the first was the outline planning consent back in 2007. You've got LDO 1, LDO 1.5 and now LDO 2. This is all essentially for the same development. We're just further along each time. So this is LDO 2 is looking to allow the development to be completed over the next 10 years.
Thank you. Councillor Byrne?
There's only one question. I don't know if is it the rules or the law or whatever, but do we really need 400 pages that all of us are going to what? I mean, how many trees have we lost? I mean, it's not very environmentally friendly. It goes against everything. Do we actually, we wouldn't put it in a post because it's too much money, and nobody's read it, if we're honest. So why have we got, do we have to have it, or is it just like something we do?
It's not really part of the
I know it's not,
what we're
but
asking, but I understand your sentiments, Councillor Byrne, but the information has to be there, unfortunately.
Is it? All right.
Okay, shall we go to debate? Is there anybody who wants to debate? Shall we go to the vote?
I think we ought to put it through. I think it's a wonderful scheme.
Okay, so that's the debate. So who would like to propose? Councillor Byrne proposing. Councillor Shinnett will second it. Okay. The recommendation.
Can we get them up on the screen again?
Yeah, because there's quite a lot there.
Yeah, if we can just pull up the recommendation for the HABS regs on the screen, just so members are clear what they're voting on for this bit and save the chair reading it out.
Okay, is everybody happy with the recommendations? And we've got the proposer and we've got the seconder. Those in favour? Oh, unanimous. Right, back to Rachel.
Thank you, Chair. So that was a determination on whether on the habitats regulations assessment element of the LDO, and now we'll move on to whether to decide to make LDO2. So a lot of you are, obviously we've run through a little bit of the background already. So this is the LDO2 boundary as proposed, and that's the same boundary that was proposed for LDO 1.5 as well. So LDO2, as we mentioned, is proposed to establish permitted development allowances for 733,776 square metres of commercial floor space and amenity uses. This table is quite useful. It just sets out the range of uses that are being proposed and the thresholds applied to those. As it's set out there, already over 400,000 already been completed and committed, but the main uses are still the warehouse, industrial and the research and development type uses that are being proposed, but along with some additional uses that we haven't previously had with LDO 1.5 and LDO 1. So just in terms of the development status at the logistics park, so the buildings shown in red, these are where the development has been completed. The buildings in blue, as of March 2024, the status of those was that there had been a prior notification confirmed. Since then, those buildings, the two smaller plots, one is now occupied and one's being marketed. The larger building at the bottom, that building works have been implemented on site. The buildings shown in grey, those are the sites that are looking to be developed in the future and would be hopefully done under LDO2. So the development being permitted by LDO2 will be subject to conditions and limitations which form schedules to the order. So some of the documents you've got there in your pack are the design code, the code of construction practice, and the ecological mitigation and management plan. The proposal is also to be subject to a Section 106 legal agreement, and this is to secure some of the mitigation in relation to principally road and transport networks. So works the M25 junction 30, works on the Manaway interchange, speed control measures on the Manaway, bus infrastructure in Stamford Hope, and support for bus provision, implementation and compliance with the travel plan and employment of skills. There are some additional heads as well of terms which are also, included in more detail in the reports before you. The scheme was subject to an environmental impact assessment. The environmental statement that was submitted with the application provides assessments of potential significant environmental effects during construction and once LDO2 is complete and operational. Considerations also being given to the cumulative effects of the proposed development and taking account of the conclusions in the ES and the mitigation to be secured and through the Section 106 legal agreement, there'll be no significant effects on the environment. So we did consult with regards to the proposals, and there have been no objections raised by statutory consultees. There were 516 notification letters sent to nearby owner-occupiers, with 2 objections received, raising concerns regarding ecology, water tables, dredging, and noise and disturbance. Comments were also received from the Thames Enterprise Park development, and I think when you look in your report, you'll see that they're under the heading of an objection, but they've since written to us to confirm that they were not an objection, but just comments in relation to the proposal. So just in terms of a summary, the principal developments in accordance with policy aspirations, improvements to the transport networks and measures secured in the travel plan and the Section 106 will ensure that LDO2 does not result in unacceptable highway impacts. Any harm to designated heritage assets is clearly outweighed by the considerable public benefits of the development. The Environmental Mitigation and Management Plan, alongside measures included in other compliance documents, ensures the future protection of ecological features and flood risks being appropriately considered and mitigation secured to enable the completion of the regeneration of this site. So, as we know, LDO 1 and 1.5 have been successful in the past, and they've simplified the planning consenting regime for development of the logistics park. And there are clear commercial benefits to the operator DP World, London Gateway, and potential occupiers. And LDO2 will continue to help accelerate the delivery of appropriate development on the remainder of the logistics park, promoting economic, social, and environmental gains for the area. So in terms of the recommendation, firstly, to note your earlier decision, which confirmed that the proposal would not adversely affect the integrity of a European site or European offshore marine site, either alone or in combination with other plans or projects. That the Chief Planning Officer be authorised to make LDO2 subject to the signing of the Section 106 legal agreement. To note the requirement for the Council to advise the Secretary of State that LDO2 is made. And there's also an additional recommendation which isn't set out in your reports, which is to delegate authority to the Chief Planning Officer in consultation with the Planning Committee Chair to make minor non-material amendments to the LDO2 prior to it being made. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rachel. Do any members have any questions? Councillor Sisterson?
Just quick, have we got any idea of the percentage of freight that might move onto the rail and sea and off the roads, or can we not say that at the moment?
Chair, if I can just, while colleagues are looking through the data, just to reassure committee members, there's been detailed modelling in terms of the impact of movement, specifically in terms of road movement. So that mitigation is factored in, and that has been forensically looked at across 3 parties, including ourselves, DP World as the operator, but also from a highway perspective, National Highways have also been engaged in that. So I'm content with the modelling work. In terms of the percentage, I'm not sure we can necessarily find that for you right now, but in terms of you being able to come to a decision, I'm completely content that this has been forensically looked at in detail, and the mitigation that's included and the provisions within the LDO provides us with enough assurance to make that decision. And also to note that this has been consulted upon extensively. So other parties of interest will have had the opportunity to review all of that evidence base and comment as appropriate. I think my colleague Julian may wish to come in, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Within the LDO, there's the capacity for up to 20% to be changed on to the rail. I would also indicate at this stage that the current assessment is that the impact of the LDO2 in terms of traffic movements is less than the original LDO. It's just the periods during the day when that impacts has changed. So originally the assessment was done that the main impacts would be potentially outside the peak, whereas some of the impact now is within the peak periods. But the overall assessment from knowing what's coming out the port now, as when it was done in the original LDO, was obviously an assumption based on the size of the development and other developments. Having assessed the traffic that comes out now from the development, the potential impact is actually going to be less overall in terms of traffic movements.
Councillor Byrne?
Yeah, same question as before. I jumped in earlier, didn't I? The Manaway. Who is, which I know when I got more than enough faith in DP World to look after the Manaway, but what is Thurrock Council's commitment on that? Because I know we've all got the argument of who owns the top service, who owns the middle service, and who does what. So are we confident that TBC will do what they're supposed to do? Because I know DP World will.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of that the highway maintenance, that's not really a material planning consideration in terms of the impact of a development. But obviously I understand where you're coming from, but the responsibility for the maintenance of the Manaway is Thurrock Council.
Councillor Arnold?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to sort of go down the same line, really. I remember banging on about this quite a lot a year or two ago, because I had the opportunity to. I mean, obviously I live very close to the Manaway. And really, it's just a matter of putting it on, getting it back out there, really. I think really we need to be so mindful of actually what is going on there. And daily I see the vehicle movements, and I appreciate it's very well managed coming out the port. The port is lovely, isn't it? But, you know, if ever there is an issue with a Manaway, it is going to be carnage down there, because people are going to be heading through Corringham and Fobbing, up to the town centre, through Stamford, and it just will not be able to cope. And I think there's a general kind of feeling that we're just rolling over.
More of a debate than a question, isn't it?
Yeah,
Have you
yeah,
got
yeah.
a question,
I haven't really got a question. I just want to put it on record that we really need to keep our eyes on this ball.
I think we've gone on. Oh, Councillor Shinnick. Oh, sorry, Julian.
Thank you, Chair. If I may, just to draw reference, obviously I appreciate the issues with the Manaway. It's the single point of access for DP World. Members may be aware, through LDO1 there was a range of measures that were implemented with that in mind. One of them was a maintenance crossover scheme, so that if there was any works or anything that needed to be done on the Manaway, that you could still maintain the two-way traffic flow if one side of the road needed to was out of action for any reason. So there is that mechanism already in place through the LDO1. One of the things that we have sought to secure in this LDO2, and it mainly resulted from the noise implications of vehicles using the Manaway, but members may be aware that there is a Section 106 contribution for an average speed camera, where the speed limit is going to be reduced down to 40 miles an hour, which is identified in the noise assessment to provide a betterment for the local residents, and that speed camera is there to just ensure that people do keep to that speed limit as well. So it's going to calm the road down sufficiently as well from a highways perspective and safety perspective, but also help out with that noise impact as well.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, before bring my colleague Emma in. So in terms of your decision-making committee, just draw your attention to the heads of terms. So in the heads of terms, Section 6 and Section 7 deals specifically with Manaway, and that's really what you need to consider as to whether that's acceptable. My advice to members of the committee is that is acceptable, because that's been derived based on the detailed evidence that we've undertaken. If it's okay, Chair, I'll pass over to my colleague Emma if she wishes to articulate that any further to assist you with your decision making.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to clarify something in terms of the speed limit on the Manaway. Matthew's absolutely right in terms of the average speed cameras, but the speed limit is not going to change. It's going to remain at 50 miles an hour. And I just wanted to make sure that you made the decision on the correct basis. So it will enforce. At the moment, I think traffic is going far faster, so you will see a benefit in terms of noise and everything else by enforcing the current speed limit. So I just wanted to make sure you're making the decision on the correct basis.
Thanks, Emma. Any further questions? And we'll go to Councillor Shinnick.
Will the speed cameras be on either side of the road? That's one of the questions I've got.
Will speed cameras be on both sides of the road?
Yes.
Councillor Sisterson.
Just a quick, you may not be able to answer it at the moment, but part of the 106 looks like is improvements on the M25 junction 30, which obviously everyone knows, you know, during the rush hour coming off the M25 at that point, it can get very much held up. So if you've got any ideas what sort of improvements that might be?
Thank you, Chair. There is a scheme that's been discussed with National Highways. As it's a National Highways asset, we've not really had much involvement in it. It's just that it's kind of it was identified in LDO 1, and it's more relevant for LDO 2 to keep it alive, and there's mechanisms for them to undertake the works in a timely manner as well. But we can't really go into too much detail on it. We don't have the information to hand, unfortunately, for you.
Oh, sorry, Julian?
The idea of the scheme is to increase the capacity through junction 30, basically, so to try and improve what's actually happening, obviously, as you're aware, during on the slip off from the A13 onto junction 30. So the idea of the scheme is to try and improve that so that that traffic getting off the A13 is reduced.
Yeah, thank you. Just so, yeah, obviously they're aware. Yeah, thank you.
Any further debate? No, shall we go to the recommendation? Please, put it up on the board, please. Would someone like to propose? Councillor Shinnock and Councillor Byrne to second. And therefore, those in favour, please, would you please raise your hands? That's good. Okay, thank you. Unanimous. Thank you very much. Oh, so we're not going to suspend standing orders. Right. Thank you, everyone. That concludes the business of this meeting. I now declare the meeting closed at 7:17. Thank you very much. That was good, wasn't it?